Hello, welcome back to Far Horizons Gaming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on with Suzerain. So last time we left off, we refused a bribe from a corrupt politician. We awarded the construction project for our H3 highway project. And we also went up to Conriat and struck a potentially shady deal with a media mogul. And today, we're going to start out with, well, I guess let's start off with this report from Holzord here. So, Kasaro Keebner demands emergency to be called. The leader of NFP, Kasaro Keebner, has demanded an emergency be called to address the increasing political violence in the country. He stated that without a declaration of emergency, Sorlin would be destabilized, and the integrity of the country would be damaged even further. That's a pretty decent point. But that's a worry for another time. Right now we are going to take a look at an Economic Recovery Act, or Economic Relief Act, I'm sorry. Okay. So with the assistance of the National Business Council and the Central Bank, Simon Hole put forward a countrywide relief plan to mitigate the economic hardships that are being felt. We can either provide stimulus checks for people in need or bail out businesses under serious financial strain, or decide not to approve the plan. Okay, that's a tough question there. We have to do something. I mean, if we bail out the businesses, it's cool, the businesses are back afloat, but if nobody has money, they can't buy anything. So, we're going to just go ahead and provide stimulus checks and hope that does something good. Alright, got a newspaper article, so I'm going to assume somebody's going to be yelling at me about that. Let's see. Alright. From The Economists, unemployment and checks. The administration has fallen for populism and the idea that giving people money will solve the problems of the economy overall. It's hard to grasp where these ideas come from, especially when long-term job growth and employment is what this country needs to secure in order to have a stable economy. What is the plan here? People will be able to pay their rents for a few months and they'll fall into the same unemployment trap due to lack of job availability or security. The businesses can't carry all the weight of the declining economy on their own shoulders and employ people without help from the government. The administration needs to reevaluate the way out of the recession with realistic methods. Yeah, fuck you. Alright, so hold up, we got a country overview blip over here. So, stimulus checks distributed. Well, that's a green thing, so hopefully that was good. Relief helped millions of people. Alright, well, I like that. Alright, and our journal is just saying that we passed a large economic relief package. Alright, so I guess then we're moving over here to Dyer. For the funeral of Bernard Circus. The death of Bernard Circus has shocked the country, and his funeral will be held in Dyer among a large crowd of sympathizers. Circus was not only a communist poet, but also an elected MVP that had a voice. A state funeral has been organized to honor him. The question is whether the president and the administration will attend the funeral or not. Yes, we will attend the funeral. Alright, St. Dost's Nourist Cemetery. Alright, dark clouds were looming over Dyer. They looked daunting as our convoy started approaching the century-old cemetery. It looked like it was going to rain, certainly fitting weather for a funeral. As expected, Bernard Circus's passing maintained its media attraction, and all of Swordland was paying attention to the ceremony, especially to what I would say in my speech today. Sir, we have arrived. Raindrops were running down the car window and Serge opened my door and held an umbrella over my head. As soon as I got out, flashes from the cameras blinded me. It's okay, Serge. Hold my own umbrella. Yeah, as you wish, sir. He handed me the umbrella and started waiting next to the car with his own. Peter and Carl exited from their own cars in the convoy and made their way over to me. Hey, Anton. Crap, I don't remember this guy's voice, so I'll just give a new one. Mr. President? Just wanted to inform you that the perimeter is clear and secure completely. There's no one getting in or out without our knowledge. We don't want something similar happening again, do we? Absolutely not, Mr. President. The same mistakes will never happen again. I personally made sure of that. Good. If anything happens to Anton, you'll have to answer to the First Lady. And trust me, Carol, you don't want that. Ada let out a laugh, which drew some attention from bereaved attendees. You're the only one that can make me laugh at a funeral. Hey, I mean, life is full of tragedy. Should I take it easy if we can? It started to rain. Several unintelligible voices were heard from Carl's radio. He stepped out to reply and returned shortly. We have a small problem, sir. 5 to be exact. Red Youth members are here to attend the funeral. They apparently said they wish to pay their respects to the fallen comrade. Should we let them in? Do you think they pose a security threat? No, they're thoroughly searched. Looks like they really are here to attend the funeral. Let them in, but put a few guards on them to be safe. As you command. Hey, let's head over. They're about to start. We walked towards the crowd circled around the grave. Everyone in attendance was wearing black in mourning. The rain started pouring heavily. Bernard's widow and daughter were in the front row, staring at the coffin with a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and above all, a cold, unforgiving sadness. Both of their eyes were very red and swollen from weeping. Before taking my place to observe the ceremony, I gave my condolences to Bernard's wife and his daughter who looked at me. She reminded me of Diana. When the religious ceremony was done, I was invited by the priest to deliver my speech. I took to the podium. I felt like I had a lump in my throat. I couldn't get the daughter's eyes out of my head. Today, we are mourning Bernard Circus, a father, a husband, and a loyal servant of this country. Towards the back of the crowd, I spotted the members of the Red Youth, wearing red shirts and black bands of mourning on their arms. They seemed ruly and were respectfully bowing their heads. There was complete silence except for the sound of raindrops. Let's see. Regardless of his ideology, this was a heinous act made towards a good man. We must end this cycle of violence now. Circus had a dream of a unified Swordland. In these next months, we need to fulfill his dream and band together. But hatred begets hatred. There's only one way to overcome this vicious cycle. We must unite against the evil of this world. I would now like to recite a part from one of the poems he left us. Let's see, a couple good interesting options here. Our only strength is the will to survive, knowing that we will perish, knowing nothing more absolute. Rise towards the sun. Those who died fighting. They're now buried in the sun. When no needs more, there's a raid to the sun. They do not let us sing our songs. They're afraid of the dawn. They're afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Kind of like that one. We'll go with that. They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. A moment of silence, please. During the silence, all that was heard were the ravens. Some attendees started clapping, some crying. The coffin was lowered into the grave by the gravekeepers. After a couple minutes, Bernard Circus was with the soil, no more. As we bid farewell to Bernard, I want to close with the words every sword lives by. A morgna vescore. Everyone replied, Vector insista. Victory is close. With applause, I stepped down from the podium. It was time to leave. The widow thanked me with a soft and defeated voice before we dispersed. On my way back to the car, I still couldn't get the eyes of Bernard's daughter, nor the faltering voice of his wife, out of my head. Would Deanna, Monica, and Frank look the same way if something happened to me? Peter put his hand on my shoulder. Hey, that was a good speech. I sensed only respect from his voice. Thank you, I mean it. I know you do. Come on, it's time to go. We've got work to do. He was right. We had work to do. So much more to do. I realized that the rain had stopped, and I looked up. The black clouds slowly dispersed, and sunbeams enlightened our surroundings. As someone once said, even the darkest night will end, and the sun will rise. Hope was still on the horizon. Alright. It's a nice little ceremony. Alright, back to the news here. The Whole Sword Post. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Huge crowds of mourners, including President Rain and other senior Sword officials joining for a rare display of unity, poured into the heart of Deer today to bid farewell to Bernard Circus, the politician who was shot and killed at the gates of the Maroon Palace after Rain's inauguration ball. With hundreds of police officers in riot gear on duty and traffic barred on major thoroughfares, the normally chaotic section of the city took on a somber atmosphere. Millennialist anthems played from loudspeakers along Freedom Avenue as Swordish citizens of various ethnicities stood shoulder to shoulder, many of them in tears. Others leaned out windows or over balcony railings to watch the procession. President Rain gave a unifying message to all of Swordland by attending the funeral, paid his respects to Circus, and met with his close relatives. Rain also made an emotional speech that touched thousands of attendees. He finished his speech with a quote from Circus. They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. And Swordland Today says President Rain's last farewell to Bernard Circus. Scenes of compassion, unity, and respect were recorded during the solemn funeral of Bernard Circus, which the VP and the President attended. President Rain has shown respect and grace by letting Red Youth members enter the funeral to give their final goodbyes to their fellow traveler. This show of compassion is what the country deserves at this period of uncertainty. The new era of the Rain administration indicates that the divisions of the country might soon be healed. Alright, well, that is exactly the response I was hoping for by going to the funeral. I mean, regardless of whether we agreed with him or not, the dude was still a member of Parliament, and it's only right for the president to show up at his funeral, you know? Sorry, I had to take a drink there. Alright. But let's go ahead and move on to briefing on the current diplomatic situation at the Blue Mansion, Lockhaven. The Blue Mansion, Lockhaven hosts us for the important diplomacy gathering. The door opened, and David Vichy, once a lecturer to me, now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, gently made his way towards my desk.
May I sit down, Mr. President?
Leave the formalities aside, David. Please, take a seat.
Right. Still getting used to your new position, Anton.
He slowly sat down, taking care not to aggravate the arthritis in his knees. He'd always had an air of gravitas about him, and old age only served to deepen that. After he settled himself, he regarded me with delight, his blue eyes sparkling.
Look at you, Anton, the 4th president of Swordland. What a privilege for me. I still remember the first day you took my class at the Whole Sword State University. Somehow the inexplicable ebb and flow of life has led us here, to positions where we can change the course of history.
This is our opportunity to shape the future, and we'll do precisely that.
I am looking forward to our new foreign policy.
He started coughing again, this time for longer. Would you like some tea or water?
Oh, yes, please. Tea and water sounds nice. Thank you very much.
He smiled. Lydia brought 2 cups of tea along with a glass of water and placed them on the table.
It seems you still remember how much I like tea. Nowadays, it really does wonders to my throat.
So, how's your wife Catherine doing?
My lovely Catherine is as energetic as always. Age has hit me harder than her, for sure. She still does her daily jogs, unlike me. Nothing can challenge time. Nothing. How's the Rain family?
We're slowly starting to get used to the routine.
As time passes, I realize it more. Family is the most important thing in life. We must take care of them.
The door opened. Joseph and Lucian joined us for the briefing as the tall case clock hit the hour mark. Peter, however, was missing. I wonder if he was late from all the drinking he did at the party in Lockhaven.
We'll talk more later, President Rain. Welcome, everybody.
How's your trip to Lockhaven?
A little bumpy due to some turbulence. I arrived via a military cargo plane that landed at Lockhaven International. I took the train. It was a little slow, but I can still recommend it for the beautiful landscape. I also had the possibility to work on a couple of things during the ride. Well then, since Mr. Vectorn doesn't seem to be coming today, I think we are ready to start.
I will start by providing a brief overview of our current status with our neighbors. What would you like to start with?
Start at the top here. I'd like to hear about Agnolia.
Our brotherly nation to our northeast, Agnolia. They are still diplomatically not aligned and probably has one of the most democratic good lord. One of the most democratic systems between our neighbors.
Economic stagnation is a worry for them. Their primary issue is their heavy reliance on foreign investment from us.
Agnolia is our most friendly neighbor. We've been allies for the longest time after Rumberg annexed Dome. This fact needs to be part of the equation. Unsurprisingly, the Agnolian Prime Minister, Martin van Horten, is expecting better cooperation through a new, fairer trade deal with us as one of his election mandates.
A more comprehensive trade deal sounds beneficial to all sides.
Both sides could gain from it, but Agnolia has more to win than us. They want to protect their weaker industries, which we are profiting from selling our goods to. Additionally, the latest numbers indicate that currently 1 million Agnosword citizens live in the inland region of Sortland.
Which creates a link between foreign policy and our internal affairs. These people have suffered socioeconomically, which led them to crime and other problems. In addition, a relaxed immigration policy was one of Agnolia's main requests, which is unacceptable. Most of the migrants in our country haven't even assimilated into Sortish culture, and they more want help.
I'm supportive of relaxed immigration.
I would rethink the matter seriously, because it has great influence on our society and values. We should remember that we promised to keep our immigration laws relaxed in the election campaign.
I want to know more about Vogsland. It's a slightly awkward jump just to go right to the next topic, but that's okay. Alright, we're gonna do that so it's all in one sentence this time.
Our cousins of old across the Markian Sea wish to have good relations with us. As we all know, Vogsland is a socialist republic aligned with the United Cantana. They are an important regional player. It's also the most significant sea power in eastern Mercopa. We had hostile relations with them after several wars in the 19th century, which we wouldn't want to experience again. Recently, the relationship has warmed up thanks to Emmerich Hagel. As a result, diplomatic talks will be conducted in the future.
Breaking the ice with Vogsland could be good if we are to rise diplomatically.
I agree that they could be potential allies, in my opinion. The situation in the region necessitates that we find allies.
There haven't been good relations with us for the past 200 years. Recently, they've also joined the Communist Cantanan Security Pact, subjugating themselves to United Cantana. On top of that, territorial issues flat up between Agnolia and Vogsland because of the Helluland Island.
Helluland? I'll just go with that.
The Sortish Navy is very concerned with this volatile situation.
Lucian looks slightly worried.
Unfortunately, billions of Suzerain worth of cargo is transported close to Vogslandian maritime borders on the Markian Sea and the Grey Strait. This causes significant risks to our imports and exports in the case of deterioration in relations.
The strait is of high strategic value to us.
Yosef, the Navy is keeping an eye on the situation from a distance, right? We are actively monitoring the sea routes and cargo ships. For now, there's no immediate threats, but we don't know what can happen in the future.
Cool, alright, well. Then, what's the latest situation in Valen?
It's tumultuous in the south as always. Victor Smolak is expanding his powers among protests from the Novasic people. However, he is quite positive about normalization of relationship between our countries. Reports indicate that they have been warming up to Quintana and international aid. As you know, Valen's stability was always a concern for the region. But if we want to help them, we must not treat refugees like we did in the 30s. I still can't stomach the humanity of those people suffered.
What? I don't think Of needs to be there, but whatever, it's all good. A trade agreement with them would help improve stability and increase mutual trade.
There would be many bargaining chips discussed, but Valen could be a new partner in the region. We would also invest in stability there. Our main goal should be to avoid a refugee crisis like the 1920s. That civil war had major security and economic repercussions on Sortish soil.
One of the demands of President Smolak was to tighten our immigration laws so the political refugees don't escape to Swordsman. There's been a recent purge that pushed many Bludish to flee Berger. It is definitely troubling. Glimmer Outpost has regained its importance due to this. I'm sure you remember that winter at the border outpost, Mr. President.
He was right. I did remember that winter. I remembered how cold it was when I let the refugees slip through. I was discharged from my duties as a result, by Major Josef Lancia no less, spending the rest of my service cleaning toilets and sleeping in a cell.
In fact, there's been a similar refugee situation in the past. Even Mr. President himself chose to disobey direct orders from his commanding officer at the time.
I did what was right.
Soldiers do not decide on what is right. Soldiers do what they are told to do.
He opened his mouth to continue, but David cut in.
Our focus should be on the current matters. The Bludish minority is very large inside Valen too, which is a factor to consider. It is in our national interest to prevent the formation of a failed state on our western border.
Valen has been increasingly aligning itself towards a communist alliance, another point to analyze.
Sweet. Let's move on.
Two important neighboring countries remain, Lesbia and Rumberg. Which would you like to hear about first?
What about Lesbia? I just went the wrong voice last time. Oh well.
Our southern neighbor is aligning itself more and more with Arcasia. Lesbia is currently led by Prime Minister Patricio Alvarez.
They are the jewel of the continent and the second largest economy in Marcopa. Though wealthy, Lesbia suffers from excessive economic inequality.
Our past relations have been great, but during the last decade, their investment to Sutherland dwindled due to our instability.
Allying with the richest regional nation could be beneficial.
It could be, but it would also mean that we would draw closer to the Arcasia bloc and near the Arcasian Treaty Organization. I am certain that the recession has a lot to do with their attraction of investments. Once they see that money isn't in the picture, they vanish rather quickly because they are capitalists.
They have shown selfish attitude during the Valen Civil War by closing their borders and allowing refugees to cross into Swordsman.
What? You didn't want refugees either. Seems kind of hypocritical there, you douchebag. Okay. Lucien cleared his throat. The capitalism of Lesbia is inspirational to me. Look at their economic power.
Everything comes at a cost. In Lesbia, the cost is wealth and equality, but business people are getting richer and richer.
There are hundreds of very privileged oligarchs who invest inside and outside of Lesbia. Some made significant business investments in the cities of Benfi and Falgen.
Alright, what's the situation with Rumberg then?
Now to the most troublesome nation, Rumberg. The constitutional monarchy led by Queen Beatrice Livingston.
I highly advise caution and calculated action against Rumberg. Our military must be prepared. The threat is real.
They are strong and have the motivation, as well as the means, to damage us. We shouldn't give them any reasons to pursue aggression.
I'll take your advice into consideration.
These types of nations will always try to make up a casus belli, a reason to declare war.
Well, Thornburg openly denies such claims. Their past and current actions make it clear that they want to destabilize us. The weapons caches found by our intelligence agency clearly shows what their goals are. Our military must be steadfast and our diplomacy valiant.
Yosef looks stern and full of resolve. The Rumberg threat is one of our top priorities, you can be sure of that.
We are always in dialogue with our Rumberg ambassador to make sure her channel is open to solve disputes.
We could use their aggressive attitude against them by convincing the international community.
Lucien grabbed the Lockhaven Times newspaper and put his finger on the article about the latest diplomatic incident.
Their abrupt announcement about the closure of the Rumberg consulates in Lockhaven is yet another step in their escalation.
This covers the overview of the current situation. We will move on to our trade choice and the response to Rumberg's diplomatic escalation.
The sun began to set over the hills surrounding Lockhaven. The team is ready to give advice on the new trade initiative and the response to the latest diplomatic incident with Rumberg. Peter arrived late and a little rougher than usual. It must have been the drinking from last night. Oh, hey there, folks. Excuse my delay. I'm sure I didn't miss anything we didn't already know.
You are still supposed to be part of this meeting, also on time. Punctuality is important. We are talking about serious subjects here.
Peter was assigned a task for me, that's why he's late, so let's move on. Yes, went successfully, sir. Peter's tone was more serious. Oh, whoops. Whatever. Expect a report on your desk tomorrow.
The Vice President will also be part of the trade delegation, so it is great to have input on that subject, but also on the Rumberg incident. There are 2 issues at hand. Which topic should we tackle first?
We should address the diplomatic incident.
Rumberg Consul Sir Bran Harrington announced the closure of the 120-year-old consulate. Now the diplomatic staff is leaving the city to go back to Thornburg.
He blamed the lack of security in Swordland due to the assassination and the subsequent protests, but it is obvious that they are making excuses. Brr, bastards. First they close the consulate and then they blame our security?
Their concerns could be genuine, but this reaction is unnecessary. Hey, agreed. Other diplomatic missions have worked with our security units to increase the protection of staff and buildings.
The neglect of President Alfonso and the chaos of elections delayed our diplomatic efforts. Now there are only 2 Rumberg diplomatic missions left in Swordland. One is the consulate in Deer, and the other is the embassy in Holsword.
We're accustomed to the usual rhetoric, but this seems far more serious. Hey, they're playing a fire. Look what the Wayland destabilization has done to the region. So them breaking apart would tear Maricopa apart.
In my entire career, I have never seen our Rumberg relations suffer this much. The previous low point was the annexation of Dome.
Joseph Valencia was furious. He barely kept himself from slamming the desk.
There are worrying developments like the smuggled arms and the build-up near the border. Our military must be buffed up to stand up against a regional power like Rumberg.
Well, we either respond to this aggressive act with a diplomatic condemnation, or we retaliate by closing our consulate in Dome.
I want to say that an escalation will be risky this early in our presidency. We should focus on creating a negative image of Rumberg in the international scene. Their people of Swordland must be protected no matter the cost. I say we respond equally.
Let's write an official diplomatic response condemning this unreasonable act. Declare that Rumberg aims to destabilize Swordland and the region.
Yep, as you wish, Mr. President. I shall begin work by immediately informing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
Swaying the international stage is the key in long-term strategy. I wish we'd have acted more strongly. If we don't confront them, they will keep escalating the situation.
Hey, I, on the other hand, am glad that we're taking the more cautious road. Alright, well, we should move on to the new trade initiative here.
Our primary goal will be to successfully sign a trade agreement with one of our smaller neighbors. We have 2 options with our trade initiative. Start off new negotiations with our old partner Agnolia, and forming new cooperation with Wayland.
Tell me about the deal with Agnolia.
First off, the reason behind this option is more diplomatic than economic, although of course we can't forego the added economic value. Agnolia is an old ally and a valuable trade partner. The point we were at with early negotiations is around the steel trade. They are demanding that we buy their steel for a higher price. That's because they think the deal is far too unbalanced as it is. Their second main demand is privileged access to our agriculture market. If we are to fulfill their demands, in return they are offering a full alliance with Sordland against Rumburg.
Looking at the current advances of Rumburg along our borders, having a coalition against Rumburg would prove extremely useful.
Obviously, there will be consequences for any full alliance. Mainly the issue is around the Helgi Islands. Volksland has clear intentions on taking over the island one way or another, and entering a military alliance with Agnolia will make them furious.
I want to state my support for the decision to stick to our old ally Agnolia. Even though I disagree with their demand to relax immigration, we have cooperated with them on many issues in the past.
There are obviously good subjects that we would still need to tackle, like our economies, the trade of goods, and what to do with immigration.
Yeah, my opinion is that this is a good deal and we should go for it. The new Agnolian Prime Minister is trying to improve this existing relationship. The downside is that we would need to make concessions, a reality of any trade deal.
And I'd be open to creating a new agreement that would satisfy all sides.
That would be the best outcome. If you decide that Agnolia is a good option, another point is that they have a very democratic system. After the recent elections, PM has a mandate to arrange a fairer deal with us. Martin Van Horten also is an avid supporter of relaxed immigration. Since we said we'll keep immigration relaxed, it'll help us. Starting the highway construction island plays a part too.
Regardless, if we are going to increase our regional influence to previous levels, we might need to make amends with our neighbors. Ultimately, the decision will be up to you, as always.
Cool, well, tell me about the trade deal with Valen, then.
Dealing with a fractured country like Valen has its positives and negatives. Although it will be lucrative in short term, there are risks associated with dealing with such a country. They are proposing a co-investment project and a no-tariff agreement. They are also offering oil in return for attracting foreign capital interests from Sordland. However, it is possible that there will be international ramifications of getting closer with a country like Valen. All in all, this is a very lucrative deal for us, however. We need to think about the consequences.
I certainly don't support the decision to become friendly with Valen. We carried their burdens for decades. The migrants flooded our country, and now they're expecting a deal from us.
Maintaining influence with Valen could prove useful. Yes, it is risky, but think about our influence on an undeveloped region like that. We could also sell more products into their market easily.
I am of the opinion that it is simply too risky. Yes, we will gain resources and immediate capital, but I am afraid of the consequences.
You may be right, it's risky.
I tend to agree.
If we wish to go forward with the deal when the time comes, there is a topic of immigration to consider. Vitor Smolak is known isolationist. Our promise to keep our immigration policy relaxed will not help at all. He blames us for bringing Western interests to the region. He also doesn't want his political opponents to flee here.
I personally don't like the idea of getting too close to Valen.
Yeah, me too.
Agreed.
I still think we should give it a try.
Our campaign promised to steer Sordland towards west, and Arcasi will have an effect on the negotiations, especially with Valen. As you know, the current affairs of Valen are partly a result of United Quintana's support of Vitor Smolak. This will be a problem, but definitely worth trying. As for Agnolia, this promise had made them cautious, which might make it harder to get a good deal. We also need to consider the effects of our economic doctrine plan. The fact that we're headed towards a market economy will have an influence.
Good negotiators optimize the interests which make the differences become trivial, allowing both sides to reach a deal.
Very true, Mr. Vector. We have a lot of time to prepare the scheduled visits, or prepare before the scheduled visits to Valen and Agnolia. I believe this gives a brief overview of our current options. Our trade deal allocation will begin work towards the end of the year. We expect a final negotiation and the signing to happen next year.
Very much looking forward to visiting Stalport and Vraklovitz with body animals like David and Simon? Peter laughed. Yosef narrowed his eyes and stared at him.
Well, that concludes our meeting, Mr. Rain.
Thank you all for coming.
I will take my leave then. Sure.
The meeting concluded and the team dispersed. Our diplomatic action plan officially began. Nice, okay. I know we didn't do a whole lot there, but that was a pretty long meeting, and this video is definitely getting a little on the long side here, so I'm going to go ahead and call it an episode for today, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.